Today is June 11th, Saturday. This is the second Saturday in June, and we're continuing our series of second Saturday presentation with life cycle collection management. What is a collection? A collection is a curated selection of composed, connected assortment of objects, and that's limited only by the imagination of the uh, curator. Collection management is the services, the activities associated with acquiring and maintaining a collection. We have the contact information for the gallery, and that is going to be as part of the presentation as well. So if you want to contact us, you'll have it. Lifecycle connection management has several significant aspects. It is related to pre-purchase preparation. It's related to purchase and acquisition of the actual art objects. It's requires archiving and documentation about the art objects, and it has a component that tries to preserve value by making sure that what you get is authentic, that what you get is not fakes or forgeries. So the other piece is a significant part of collecting is sharing your artworks with others, and there's a significant component for storage, transportation, safety, and the one big thing that collectors need to remember is you need to devote resources and time to making sure that the collection is conserved and preserved. And that requires meticulous attention to details, because most of the bad stuff that happens to art is related to, is insidious. It happens before you know it, and you walk in the room and basically you come out like, well, when did this happen? So all of that are important components of collection management. The two last things that we'll talk about is the disposal of the collection. We're not going to live forever. You're not going to live forever, but you would have to think about what to do with your collection, or what your heirs will do to your collection, or how you want to manage it beyond your lifespan. The other part is I'm going to take time in the series, like several months from now, as art as an investment. And I want to make sure that people know that that is not for amateurs. You have to have a very good body of knowledge about the art market, about the artists, about the specific artworks that you collect, so you can have a knowledge that you can benefit financially from. Okay, that's not for the faint of heart, because most of the time, even though art is an appreciable asset, most art does not appreciate. Collections, I think of the collection management cycle in the ways because it's dynamic and it's in flux, it's constantly changing, things are going in and out of the collection, and that needs to be kept track of and responded to, because 70% of art damage occurs when it's moved. And that may mean moved in the gallery or outside of the gallery. The purpose of life cycle collection management is to provide the tools for the collection management through the entirety of the collection process, regardless of the type of artist one is collecting. The things that we're going to present are related to art collecting in general. It doesn't matter whether you're collecting impressionist pieces, expressionist pieces, folk art, whatever medium you want to collect, it's pertinent to all aspects of collecting. We want you to leave away from the series by making smart art decisions, keeping appropriate archiving and documentation records, monitoring, maintaining the collection physically, because condition is important. That is one of the most things that you can, to preserve value, you have to maintain the artwork in good condition. Becoming good stewards of the art. Goals of art collecting: primarily, you want to make sure you acquire pieces that resonate for you. You want to make an emotional connection for the pieces, because that is the only true way to get value, because you like it, because it makes you feel a certain way, because you really have you make a connection. If there is no connection, you shouldn't buy it. And the point of art collecting is buying the right pieces at the right prices, for the right reasons. If you want to think like, oh, you're going to make money off of it, it's possible to do that, but that comes way down the line. What makes it a collection? There should be an informing idea that makes a connection between the objects in the set. Because it's a collection, it's not disparate items that have been assembled randomly. There is a point to what you do. And good collection, the sum of the parts, the individual pieces of art, the meaning of the collection derives value because it is greater than the sum of the individual parts. It's a Gestalt, a very good German sociological word. The connections are only limited by the imagination of the collector or the curator of the collection. And collection really means, in this context, connections. Quality collections have focus. They're focused. They possess coherence. It's developed around an informing idea, and there may be multiple, because in large collections, you have sub-collections of artists, artwork, media, all of those kind of organizing principles that you can derive from the pieces of the collection. All collections respond to established limits. The limits may be budgetarily, taste, architecture in your home or wherever you need to put your art, or whether it's displayed or not. All of those things go into forming quality collections. And a collector achieves their goals despite of the limitations. In fact, collecting is overcoming the limitations or constraints that you feel that you have. So that's an important thing to remember. Different aspects of collecting. You can collect broadly. In other words, multiple artists over multiple genres. That's possible. Or you can collect deeply, and that is following a specific artist through the evolution of their career, and collect stuff that way and any way in between that. And despite what we wish, you cannot collect everything. The one thing that I would try to admonish would-be collectors is you have to welcome serendipity. In other words, you always try to make sense of the surprises that are going to come your way. All collectors have rules and things that we follow until we find something that we like and we want, and we have to have it, and then the rules go out the window. No, you don't understand. I really need this. I really want this. I really like this. And then you make an exception to your collecting practice. So And some of the most interesting pieces that I've acquired over the years have been a result of serendipity. Keep an open mind, keep looking for things that are going to hit your eye, that you're going to want to get just because. You again, the thing that's in this serendipity finds that you'll make an emotional connection that's outside your usual realm of collecting practices. Okay, again, collecting ideas and organizing principle. Collection can be made on themes, which is the subject matter. In other words, what the artwork is about. And then styles is like how it's constructed. The style means how it's presented. The themes are and subjects are what is it about. The genre category falls into people doing ordinary things, ordinary people doing ordinary things. These are not famous people. These are people who wash clothes, people who are hanging clothes on the line, people who are cooking, people who are teaching, young people to grow into the variety of situations that they would find themselves as adults. Color, you can group. Some things. I'm a big purple fan, so a lot of the art that I have, purple resonates with me. So I will have purple. A lot of people find that red is their color, or oranges, or whatever. You can arrange your collecting practices around colors. You can arrange collecting practices around media. So you want drawings, sketches, prints, paintings, mixed media, assemblages, sculptures, all of those kind of things. You can venture out into those aspects of media. And if that's your thing, you want to collect sculptures from 20th century African American sculptures, then you can do that. There's a body of work that's happened that is available to you. Periods can be like old masters. Periods can be pre-civil rights, post-civil rights, that kind of stuff, so that you can always follow historical events and line it up. Part of the thing, and again, one of my big things is the civil rights period. So I have a number of pieces that reflect on that period of time that I feel is significant to African American history in the country. Geography is an issue because sometimes you want to collect local artists, local regional artists, and the two examples in the collection would be Clementine Hunter, because I'm from Natchitoches, and she was the first artist that I was exposed to. Miss Hunter was a cook on the plantation in Albertville down Cane River Way, and she was basically a self-taught painter. So that's why I'm attracted to her work. I'm attracted to, here in Florida, I found out the story of the Florida Highwaymen, because this is a group of formerly agricultural workers that decided that, look, we can do better than this. We want to do better than this. We're not going to meet our goals for ourselves and our families until we get more money. And they learned how to paint. They painted in a way that was an entrepreneurial and aesthetically pleasing way to the tourists and the commercial establishments along 11A on the eastern part, eastern north-south route. of Florida. So that's again, all of these things are subcomponents of the overall arc of overall collecting principles. Collecting always makes choices. You pick this over that. Aesthetics plays a role in it. The periods of an artist, like I have several pictures of Afro-Cobra artists before they joined Afro-Cobra. I have availability issues that sometimes what you want is just simply not available. You can wait years to get it. Their artists have a body of work that is continuous and different aspects of their career transitions over time. They paint stuff early on in the career, which is different from midpoint in their career, which is different from the final years of the artist. So you can fill the holes in that gap. Sometimes you can collect by filling the holes. Pricing plays an important part because sometimes, I've gotten good deals. Sometimes I get not so good deals, or I'm not going to say that I get not so good deals, but I'm going to say that price is an object. you got to be mindful of it when you purchase things, and sometimes a lot of pieces that we may want to get, we're not in the price range that we're comfortable with. Example is you should try to get, when you collect pieces, something that is a particular good example of this artist's production, so that this is kind of like if you want to get like Bearden collages, you want to make sure like if it's related to his growing up and visiting his family in North Carolina, then you want an exemplar piece that is reflective of that. So any artist that you want to make sure that you get a typical work, if that's what you're interested in. Sometimes you want to get, like, no, he did this, but are you aware that he did that too, which totally looks different from what they've had previously done? But sometimes you got to be careful about that, because sometimes they didn't do it. Okay, and that's when we're going to talk about in later lectures about authenticity, fakes, and forgeries, because sometimes people, what you think is a Bearden is not a Bearden. Part of it is the key to this portion of purchasing decision relates to pre-purchase process. You have to have a process to, you need to know what you're interested in. You need to, like, if you have not defined what you're interested in, you can be all over the place. One day you're interested in this, one day you're interested in something altogether different, and you need to guard against that. You selectively focus and explore the theme, subject, genre, artist, period, style, so that you can make sure that your taste is consistent over time. You cannot make the connections if you're not consistent, because the objects, the connection is going to not be there because you're all over the place. And that's not the fault of the collection. That's the fault that you have, your taste have not coalesced appropriately. In the field that I generally collect in, which is primarily African American art, but it's not exclusively African American art, I asked the question, what kinds of works have African American artists produced? And one of the things that I feel very strongly about is the definition of Black art. Black art is art done by Black artists. It's just as simple as that. Okay. Frequently people get mixed up with that because there should be visible black content in artwork, black artwork, and that's I've focused on periods and artists that do non-figurative, non-representational, abstract stuff a lot because this is the work done by black artists that does not have identifiable black content in it. You know, you couldn't point like, oh yeah, a black person did this. Because the vast majority of the North American experience, the artwork that depicted black people was not done by black artists. It was done by white artists. So having black content in the visible, in the artwork is not nowhere guaranteed that you have a black artist as the creator. Okay, when you do the pre-purchase research, you got to have a plan. First of all, you need to buy something you love or like. You need to avoid impulse buying. You need to take the time to verify the provenance. In other words, who does the painting go back to? Because a lot of times when you can trace it actually to the artist, that goes all the way to be proving that the work is authentic. Consult professionals as needed. The professionals that in this aspect of it, appraisers, conservative appraisers, because you want to have a sense of value. You know, again, if you're going to buy something for $30, okay, well then you don't need an appraiser because just go with it. You know, if you're going to want an appraiser for something that you're going to spend a significant amount of money on to kind of get a sense of what the works go for in the field. So you're going to really need to, you need to consider that as part of your purchasing decision. Conservators, if there are condition issues, if it's got false defects, flaking, staining, dirt, all of those kind of things, you may want to, you don't want to turn down an opportunity if it can be mended by a conservationist or preservationist. You can do that, but you need to have a sense of what the remediation is going to cost. Auction houses are frequently good sources of information because they handle a lot of art. They know the artists, and and more importantly, they know the market. I'm going to go to in the last part of this because I want you to pay attention to the language. In auction, there are things that we can see with the ads attributed to, in the style of, in the circle of, and all of that. Those words are not without meaning. Basically, they're giving you a heads up that the artist that it's attributed to, unless you see attributed to, well, that they may have not done it, or they definitely did not do it. Attributed to means, and I'm going to go into that in a little detail, that it more than likely was done by the person, but we don't really have definitive proof. So pre-purchase research are based on three things, and that is the artist, the artwork, and the market. The history of the artist, the history of the specific item, the artist, the body of the total quantity of the work that they did. Some artists are very prolific and they can crank it out really good. Some artists, they go, the between artwork is measured in years, So that's an important consideration, the total body of work. The other thing is, how was the artist received by, quote unquote, the academic community? museums, college galleries, all of those kind of things. If an artist has not been recognized, and a lot of African American artists are not recognized, and I'm saying that because that's the field that I collect in, so that they have not had an opportunity to get the recognitions that they deserve. And then there's the sources to get information, websites, art history books, auction and exhibition catalogs are all part of the sources of good information. There's seminal textbooks. They had magazines because the recent International Review of African American Art that was founded by Dr. Samela Lewis, who died last week. She was like in her 90s. But she was the godmother pretty much of African American art history, for sure. There's e-zines. Culture Type was an e-zine. There's a blog, Black Art Project. Black Art in America is another source of knowledge, and Najee Dorsey is a great resource to consult when you have questions. Age of the artist, reputation is key. Education and training, if it's available. Exhibition history, academic references, critical reviews, prizes and awards. All of those can bolster the standing of the artist in the total art community. So that's what we want to do in terms of artist research. Artists can be classified as old masters, which is historically secure artists. Their reputation is historically secure. That established artists are ones that are masters and currently in practice. Mid-career artists, emerging artists are considered artists that still pursue various styles, and they're basically learning to be effective, and their style is not yet mature. It's still evolving. Sankofa artists, this is what I call, and this is what I really search for, is artists which have achieved fame in prior years but have fallen out of favor, lost in history. One of the artists that I feel that encapsulate that definition is Norma Morgan. Norma Morgan was featured in Elton Fax's book, 17 Black Artists, and that came out in the late 60s, early 70s. And she was a very great naturalist, landscape artist. She did engravings and watercolors, and she did a few acrylics or oils, but few and far between. But her main focus was landscaping through watercolors and landscaping through engraving. And she came, unfortunately, she was a technical, just a technical tour de force. And she came along when the Black art movement was the beginning of that. And unfortunately, because she did not have Black content in her art, she did not get the recognition that she deserved. So that's one of the people that I think Sankofa artists, like the notion that go back and get it. They were falling out of favor, but they need to be picked back up and give them the recognition that they deserve. When you do the artwork research in terms of the individual pieces, there's always a consideration of media. because pieces on paper definitely are felt to be more fragile and more transitory than oil or acrylics and pieces that are done on canvas. So the media has an implication for the value, the size. I mean, no, bigger is not always better, but sometimes, because again, size, depending on where you're going to put it, where it's going to be stored, that kind of thing. But all things being equal, size, the bigger is better. Authenticity, if it's not real, then it's worthless. Provenance, any kind of way that you can determine who is the point of origin from your hands back to the artist, is a very good way of working through issues of ownership again. But now, who produced it and who owns it and who has the rights to it? Again, at a later talks, those are three separate things. Who created it, who owns it, and who has the rights to whatever that those are three distinct things and need to be worked out in terms of ownership issues. Association, was the artist part of a group? There's Spiral Artists. That's a group that was formed in the 1960s, led primarily by Romare Bearden. He wanted to make sure that people waited to he wanted to make artists aware of their responsibilities in terms of civil rights, and he wanted to make a response for the civil rights movement. And he got his friends, like 12 artists. William Majors was part of that group. Richard Mayhew was part of that group. Juergens brothers were part of that group. Norman Lewis was part of that group. So that they formed a response. It lasted about 2 years, and they made paintings related to their concept of civil rights. Africova was another group. Florida Highwaymen was another group. So with the association for these groups, that bolsters market value for that. If the artwork is typical or atypical, is this a typical thing that, like Bearden's collage work? Is that a typical example of that? Or doing his Caribbean watercolors, that he did that, but that's not necessarily an example of what he's most famous for. Condition always is important. If it's in good condition, it's been preserved. I mean, a lot of things that we've collected, they're old as me. So condition and the maintenance and preservation of the pieces is paramount. Historical significance, if the artist has been recognized historically as a significant figure, that translates into the modern day. Market research, availability is key. So if it's, high demand, that's going to make prices go up. Again, sometimes they want to have an it factor, hot, trending, a lot of word of mouth, a lot of hype. That, to me, that is usually very short-lived. It's hot for the moment. It's a flash in the pan. All of those kinds of terms would be relevant because it is like, again, it's a transient kind of status, that it's hot one moment and then it's cold the next. how much advertising and marketing you do of the artist, whether they have gallery representations or not, what are their sales records. I mean, all of those can be considered when you do your pre-market, your pre-purchase research. And then if you're in a collector community, then what do other collectors think about the artist and their work? And if they don't think very much, I mean, it's not a matter of like, if you make an emotional connection and you want the piece, that's okay. But at least you have an idea of what other collectors think about them. And so you may want to just keep that in mind. Purchase and acquisition, you need to have a buying strategy, okay? And again, part of it is how much should you pay for that? And when you buy, if you have a buying strategy, there's a lot of costs that you have to consider beyond the actual purchase price. I use what I call the development of my rules of thirds, which is a fair price is one that is plus or minus 1/3 of the fair market value. In other words, if it's $100, it's going to be 1/3 less than that. It might be, like $70 in the low side or $130 on the high side. So that'll be considered a fair market price. Overpriced, if it's greater than 1/3. In other words, so if it's 100 and then they're trying to sell it for 200, then that's well above the fair market value. If it's what I consider, low price or sale price, I think of as the value price. If you can determine the value of it and it's the purchase price that they're asking for is 1/3 or more lower than the fair market value, then it's important. That requires that is an indication of good value. But you cannot execute this strategy unless you have fairly good knowledge of the market. Now, the price ranges are very related to overhead. Are they in a gallery? Are they in a community setting that they're selling out of their house? Are there art brokers? Do you have one of the premier locations in New Orleans is the Stella Jones Gallery, which is one block off of Canal Street and St. Charles. Okay, that is one of the most prime real estate in New Orleans, and I'm sure she has a considerable overhead. The space, the commercial space, the size of it, all of that, the degree to which a gallery who represents artists supports their artists. I mean, sometimes they do, go to the extent of, even buying the artist's clothes. I mean, that's just, are they going to involved in framing? Are they involved in, insurance, marketing campaigns, hosting receptions, making sure that they tour, making sure that they have traveling exhibitions for the artwork? I mean, all of that is part and parcel of the things that they assume with artist promotion and acquiring the talent. So that artist management can encompass a wide range of issues, and that contributes to the price range of what pieces go for in galleries. And each setting has the particular cross structure. Purchase sites, probably self-explanatory. Auctions, art brokers or private dealers who have access to sellers usually representatives for artists and artists' estates and family members. Art fairs, the venue brings them together. Um, the most famous in Miami is Art Basel, and they bring a host of galleries, artists, that you can just refine your taste, find out about new artists, and just go from one venue to the next to see them. Auctions, we're going to talk about in kind of detail because that is one of the primary places that you can get artwork. Commercial galleries are obvious choices to do that, but the gallery representation is limited. Okay. The right place, the venue, has pluses and minuses. Each of them have disadvantages and advantages that you can take advantage of. One of the things that in the challenging for the African American art market is, Black artists are not as well known. They're not clearly identified. Markets and museums don't necessarily recognize their significant differences. Black buyers, until recently, have relatively less disposable income. They were not targeted for institutional institutional purchases. They consist of more self-taught artists because their educational opportunities to get training were limited. Fewer exhibition venues, fewer opportunities for workspaces and studios, limited supplies, and a smaller target audience to the market. Keys to the success of making good purchase and acquisition decisions: preparation is key, research is key, and again, 3 pieces of research: artists, artwork, the market. Pay attention to details and develop relationships with galleries, artists, other collectors, curators, advisors, brokers, and auction houses. Negotiation versus bidding. In terms of auctions, the bidding is the negotiation. The way auction process works, you start with a registration. Basically, you get your name and address. You can bid in person, absentee, telephone, online. And the way it works is you get an approval process by submitting your credit card information, and they generally assign you a limit, like till they get to know you, like, okay, well, you can bid X thousands of dollars for a piece, and, we're going to charge it to your card. Bidding in person, you can do that. That's when you assign the paddle. You move your paddle just like you see on all the ads on TV or old movies that they bid or raise their hand or raise their paddle. Absentee bidding, you can get somebody to bid for you in the appropriate increments from the auction house, and if you're successful, you win. Telephone bidding, you basically, they get you on the phone and you say yes or no to the increments that they're proposing, and again, you can have an opportunity to win like that. Or you can do internet bidding, so you can sign up for the auction and then click on the bid that you are, the price that you want to propose to pay for it, and that is consistent with internet bidding. Hammer price is the price that you would pay when the hammer goes down. In other words, the piece is sold. However, that's not the full amount that you pay. The hammer price is the price that the piece is sold for. Usually there's a 25% commission on that price, and then any applicable taxes, and you're going to have to pay for shipping. Okay, types of payments is accepted. Usually they do cash checks, credit cards, drafts, and the credit cards and drafts generally are associated with a 1 to 3% fee on top of the bill, again, for them to accept the credit card. Packing and shipping, that depends on, again, the fragility of the item. Want to make sure that it's insured for the purchase amount. And then if you fail to pay, that is going to make sure that's going to jeopardize your reputation to participate in future auction. So if you cancel a sale, if they have to resell a lot, if you have to have storage fees because you're paying slow, all of those kind of things will put you on the auction site's bad list. Again, there's things like chandelier bids, which is like a fake bid when the auctioneer identifies a space on the floor and attributes to a bid for that. And it's not really a bid. It's not illegal, but it's frowned upon in the industry. So most reputable auction houses don't do that. Reserve price. There's usually, when you see a listing in an auction catalog, it has a low price and a high price. In other words, a range that they expect it to sell. And a reserve price means that they don't disclose that, but it's usually like about half the low price estimate. So in other words, if you're going to be like between $100 and $500, the reserve price may be $50, which is half the low price. And if it does not meet the reserve, when the bidding is like, okay, well, I'm going to bid $40 and it doesn't meet the reserve, then it will go unsold. And it would go back to the consignor, which is the person who put it up for auction. With that guaranteed bid is basically like an in-house bid, so that an in-house or guaranteed bid is like prior to the auction, they kind of say like, okay, well, if it goes for, I'm going to pay this price for the item as a guarantee that the auction house and the consignor will get their money. Buyer's premium is typically like I say, it's about 25% of the price, and you want to make sure. I mean, that's not that's part of the cost. The seller's premium. There's a few auction houses that will make seller's premium. They charge the seller like 10% for them placing it at auction. That's not necessarily a common practice in the industry. In the bidding increments, bidding is based on, the bidding increments are based on the range that they are, like 0 to 20, $1 increments, 30 to $100, $2 increments, and so on and so forth. That's just the way that the bidding moves along. Okay, this is the thing that I want to talk about, is the deciphering authenticity. And that is the words in an auction ad that says attributed to indicates that the piece is likely example of the artist's work. Okay, that means that it's likely, but it's not guaranteed. Studio workshop of artwork created in the workshop of the artist cited and may be under his supervision. In other words, it's done at the time of the artist, in the artist's lifetime and under his supervision. Circle of people who are associated with the artist but not necessarily not by the artist, okay, and not necessarily his student. Style, follower of, manner completed in the manner of a specific artist, but not by the artist, and that is a contemporary of the artist. In the manner of, like the style of, it may not be. It comes after the artist, okay. And then signature, signed, dated, inscribed is unless it's otherwise stated, it's presumed to be by the artist. With signature, that means it's done. The signature or the inscription was done by somebody else. Certificate authenticity, they're not worth very much because anybody with a Xerox machine and a scanner can say that this is authentic. A state sign is the artist has done work and the estate vouches that it is his work and they sign off on it. And printer's chop mark is an impression made by the printer. And this is the incidental cost, again, about commissions, shipping and packing, framing and display, repair and restoration, the prices that you have to pay for archiving and record keeping, appraisals, insurance, storage, security, all of these things add up, so that art collecting is not necessarily a cheap hobby. That's the part that I want to make sure that you're aware of for making good purchasing decisions and understanding that. And again, that is pertinent to all types of art collecting. It's not specific for African American art, but you may use this information to bolster your knowledge in whatever art that you feel that you want to collect. All right. Thank you so much for sharing my Saturday with me. And we will have part 2 in terms of archiving and documentation, because that is one of the most significant parts of art collecting that we're going to talk about next month. All right. Thank you. And thank you for participating this week. All right. Bye-bye.